Achane versus Etienne. We're talking about that in today's video. It's kind of dynasty startup season. A lot of startup drafts will be happening over the next several months. And we're looking at two players very close in the rankings, Travis Etienne and Achane. RB6 for Etienne, RB7 for Achane. And you're sitting there in your startup draft. You're going to take a running back. It's one of those two guys. We're going to argue Brian, you're going to argue for one. I'm going to argue for the other. And I'm going to start us off, and I'm arguing for Travis Etienne, who, kind of funny, I'm not the biggest Etienne fan, but I do have to recognize that he was RB3 last year. I was worried about Tank Bigsby coming in and taking a significant role, and I was completely off on that. Etienne rushed for over 1,000 yards, had almost 500 yards receiving, caught almost 60 balls, 12 total touchdowns, was really, really good, especially to start the year. They just recently picked up his fifth-year option, so we know where he's going to be for the next 2 years, right? He's going to be tied to Trevor Lawrence, hopefully a good offense, hopefully an improved offense, but he's going to be tied to them. They used him quite a lot last year, even in the second half of the season when they gave him less carries. He was still getting 65+% of the snaps for most games. Again, super explosive player. I think he's going to have a lot of touchdown opportunities. And, when it comes to Achane, we just don't know what to expect. He was, the biggest concern on him was can he stay healthy, right? He's a small guy. He's under 200 pounds, super explosive. But can he take on a full workload, or can he even take on, 10 to 15 touches a game in the course of an NFL season? And right now our answer is no, because he got hurt 3 times last year. I think in preseason, twice during the season. So, it's more of a safer floor play, I think, here with Etienne. I know what I'm getting. I know what I'm getting for 2 years. My philosophy on running backs. Like, if I can mark you down for 2 years, like, there's not many guys I can do that with. It's like the top 5 guys in Dynasty, and then I kind of look year to year. Etienne, I can look 2 years now, and I know what I got. Whereas with Achane, all that could just go to hell if he gets hurt in week 1. So that's my argument for Etienne. Go ahead, shit on it. No, make your argument for Achane.
Well, just real quick, I'm just gonna respond to your stuff. So as far as Etienne, I kind of do agree with you as far as it's hard to argue against the guy who just got the 5th-year option, and he finished as RB3 last year, but I feel like looking at his numbers, it wasn't overly impressive. It was very he was very involved in the offense for sure. I mean, 267 carries and 78 targets with 58 catches. That's great. That's what you want to see. I just think that he wasn't extremely efficient with his running game. He did he did better actually the prior year in 2022 on about 50 less carries, but it was really the touchdowns that went more in his favor, and he didn't get a crazy number. He got 12 total, 11 on the ground. But just looking at his game logs, it's kind of all right, well, he more or less needed, let's say 2 touchdowns in his games to score over 20 points. Now, that wasn't every time, because he does have a couple sprinkled in there where he got, it looks like maybe half his 20-point plus games. He had 2 touchdowns. But I don't know. I just think that his 2022 season, finishing number 17 overall with around 1,400 total yards is more realistic. But that was a down touchdown year too. Just the Jags offense, we keep thinking it's going to be a little better than it is, or it has been. So, yeah, I don't know. I think so. My Achane take is basically kind of counter to Etienne. He did a lot with a little last year. 100 rush attempts, 800 total yards, 8 touchdowns, and so it's well, that's not like repeatable necessarily, or not that it's not, but it's not. You don't bet on that. You know, he's not going to average 7.77 yards per carry, and but I think the thing that kind of goes in his favor is we knew kind of going into that he was like the style of play. Yeah, he fits with the Dolphins offense so well because he is very much just like get on the ball and he will make things happen just given his speed. You know, he's not a size player. Yeah, there are the injury concerns, you know, but I think hopefully the Dolphins can figure out that a little bit better. And, you know, surprisingly, he had about 1,000 total yards on 140 touches. Well, 140 opportunities, right? That's how we say that. Very involved in the passing game. And that was only in 11 games. I mean, he finished as running back 24, I see, in half PPR. Actually, it might, well, yeah, it's probably pretty close. I always look at our league, which the scoring settings can be a little funky for stats. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. You know, 11 touchdowns, 1,000 yards in 11 games. So,
yep.
Tell me
yeah, RB24. He was RB4 per game. So, no, it's not that I disagree with you. I think this is just an argument of ceiling versus floor. Achane definitely has the ceiling. Etienne to me has the floor. You know, there is value, kind of like with Joe Mixon. I think there's value in a guy who can just take the workload every year and play majority of the season. You know, Etienne, you know, he had his rookie year that he missed because of the foot injury stuff, and then his second and third year, he played all 17 games. And there's value in that, you know, just like I can count on you to be there every single week, hope, you know, and take 300 touches. And teams value that. Fantasy players should value that. So, you know, and there's less competition, in my opinion. The competition for the Jags was what it was last year, essentially, unless I'm forgetting. I think they still have Dearness Johnson it's Tink Bigsby, Dearness Johnson. They added Keelan Robinson. I don't know if he went undrafted or, you know, I would be surprised if he went before round 6. He went round 5. So end of round 5. I'm not too worried about that he's a kickoff return guy. So whereas the Dolphins, obviously Mostert's still there, who was like RB2 or 4, whatever he finished as. And then they drafted a guy that a lot of people like in Jalen Wright in the essentially a third round pick for him because they traded their third round pick in 2025 to move up and get him in the 4th round. So I kind of like, you know, it just shows you how they valued him. And he's super explosive, and maybe he affects Achane's play. We don't know. So, but I agree. I think it's a ceiling versus floor play. So sometimes both are good. I generally like to go, you know, a little bit more ceiling. But if you're in the point of the draft where it's like, you know, I just need a guy who I know is going to give me 13, 14 half PPR points, 12 to 14, and I know he's going to be there. So I think that's where Etienne gets a slight lead. I'm not too worried about the age or anything like that. Again, running backs, if I can mark you down for 2 years, I'm happy. So any worry about Jalen Wright being drafted, trading up for him, taking him in the 4th round? Do you think it's more of a future insurance play year 1 / future 2025 and beyond for them?
Yeah, I'm sure he'll get worked into the offense a little bit this year coming up, but I don't think it's necessarily a threat to Achane. I think it's more of a threat to Mostert's future with the team, not this year. Mm-hmm. I'm not really too worried about him affecting Achane a ton because, again, like he is going to be one of those guys who gets, you know, basically, you know, 12 opportunities a game and see what he can make the most of it. And like you said, it is the ceiling play because we've seen what he can do. I'm surprised he didn't bring up like he got like a third of his points in a single game last year. Achane did. because that's always like a little scary. But that's also there's the ceiling right there. You know, it's like, will he ever have another 50 plus point game in his career? It's like, yeah, I mean, you can kind of bet against that, but you know, the odds are not zero for sure. And just looking through his game log real quick, he really kind of did all of this in 9 games because he left 2 after 10% or less of the snaps. So
yeah. No, it is. It's one of those things where, like, is it more valuable to give me 8 points a game in 10 games, or 40 points in 2 games, right? Like, what's more valuable, I guess. And you can kind of make an argument for both, depending on, I guess, where you're drafting them. I guess if you're drafting them this high, basically is your RB2 or RB1, maybe RB2, but probably your RB1 in Dynasty. Like, you probably want a little bit more consistency. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up about the 50 points. But it shows his capability, right? It shows his capability, and yeah, he has 2 games that he played, but he played less, 10% or less of the snaps. So you're right about the doing it in 9 games part. Well, unless you have anything else to say, or are we good to go?
No, I think that's it.
Well, let us know in the comments who you agree with. Would you take Etienne or Achane in your Dynasty startup drafts? You're choosing one of those guys. Who are you taking? Let us know. And help us get to 400 subscribers. And we'll catch you guys in the next video.